You didn't know it was me though.
At first I thought, who's that here? Then all of a sudden it hit me that quick. Oh, yeah, it's no big deal. What's up, Mr. Brummer?
I'm all right.
Hey, Scott. What did Mason do with his trade with?
You know, I don't know. I got a call.
Trade with.
I'm out on the job now, so I don't talk too much. I
Anyway.
don't know. I've seen that. I saw it on Facebook, and I hadn't.
We got hit by a Little Rock School District bus today.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
Catherine, I think, beat him. I don't know.
With one that was shot.
Hey, it's not like he ever steps out loud. I don't really know, actually. No. I've been meaning to call him. Like, every time I get a chance to, something comes up. I forget to. So,
It was flawless. I looked at it. And I started to try to run you down, and I thought, I'll see.
yeah. We'll,
Scott.
I'll text him after this. See what he's.
The big mirrors that stick out on the bus, and her mirror is
Good.
Stop messing with me. Obvious.
I know. It's, this is a tough spot to be in there. Just remember that.
They told me, oh, right, and that's, they told me about, they told me that when I was doing my daughter. Those people come and go like a Republican. It's like, right?
Yeah. May not be the, can I move on? There's a better one that, for
No,
people to
I
stick
showed
around.
them wrong. I was there for 3 years. I ended up there for a month.
What's that?
I'm in risk management. I work at, under Common Spirit Health, which,
Okay.
pretty much owns all of CHI. CHI is the health group.
Yes.
Did we get a time I got to
So I work for them.
right now?
I'll be sure to have that.
Team.
Okay.
The day before?
Well, 7:45. I'm off.
I figured since I didn't get a call, with all the stuff we're building phone trucks out there. Dude, I'm supposed to stay off. Well, because of this school bus stuff. Yeah. I gotta work tomorrow. We were supposed to leave at 9 to go to deer camp to get ready. Start getting ready.
Well, my landscaping crew was supposed to start Saturday. And I just, he said, no, ain't gonna happen.
Where's your landscape crew, Mike?
All the way in the back.
I know, I'm looking at it.
He's ignoring me.
Landscape crew was supposed to start Saturday.
At 6:30, I'll call to order the Smallmouth Planning Commission meeting for August 26, 2021. Mr. Grummer, Mr. Lyon, do we have announcements?
So, remember to speak into the mic and make sure your mic is on, turn to red when you're ready to speak. That's the first announcement. First off, we'd just like to welcome our new planning commissioner, Mrs. Mary Winnick. That's correct. So welcome to the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Staff level reviews and recorded plats, we had none for the prior month to report on. And just an update on the land use plan review update. Starting next month, we're going to set up times for public input for public process into the land use review. We reviewed it with the Mayor's Office Administration, looking at the processes and some of the recommendations that we looked at internally. And out of that, we came to the conclusion that there may be additional staff or amendments to the ordinance that may be needed as part of the update. So we didn't want to rush the process through. So as we're looking at some of those potential amendments to the ordinances that could go along with the land use plan, we're going to get public input next month. So we'll announce that with the release of the agenda.
Mr. Grummer, if I may interrupt, I've got an indication from the back that your mic may not be on and we may have a little trouble hearing you.
Hello?
No, we're not recording because this should be green.
Is it recorded?
So I'm ready to. Mine's not there, so Mary's is too. Hello?
Hello?
Appears the left side of the room may just have to be loud.
Ours is red, it's usually green. I don't know if that's got anything to do with recording.
I don't know, they should be green.
It's green. Good.
There it is.
Testing, testing.
Here we go.
Okay. I won't repeat everything that I said. The mic in the middle should have picked up on that, unless somebody wants me to repeat that. But basically, the land use review, we're going to start that external. So we'll reach out, allowing city council members and planning commissioners. We'll set it up to where it'll be drop in to look at the recommendations from the staff level that we're looking at and try to get a little bit more input to it. And at the same time, we'll be looking at potential modifications, recommended ordinance amendments. So with that, that concludes my announcements.
All right, we'll now move on to the approval of the minutes. You've all been provided a copy in your packet. Do we have any discussion, edits, changes?
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no? All right, minutes are approved. All right, we'll now, don't have any, okay, no public comments on non-agenda items, so we'll now open the public hearing. And as a bit of a procedural issue, it is my understanding that the first item is the old business of the preliminary plat of the Harrison Pfeiffer addition, and it is my understanding that the variance requested related to the Harrison Pfeiffer addition may have a bit of an impact on some of the elements of that preliminary plat. So if anybody would like to be a little bit more efficient and suggest taking things out of order, I would entertain a motion.
Did you make that motion to amend the agenda? What you're asking for, Mr. Chair?
Either amend the agenda or consider item 2 out of order.
I so move we'll consider item 2 first, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Opposed, no? All right, we will consider item number 2, so I will now convene the Board of Zoning Adjustment. Mr. Grummer or Mr. Lyon, what's the staff report on this variance?
All righty, Mr. Chair, the, let me get here. So, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of blend these two together since they kind of work together. So first off, concerning the plat, the revised plat is a combined preliminary of 2 previously approved preliminary plats, being Harris Edition and Pfeiffer Edition, approved in the April and May 2021 commission meetings. The purpose of the combined is for delineating the correct right-of-way for Commercial Park Drive that was dedicated to the city in 2004 by Ordinance 547. Also, the applicant is seeking a variance to Section 94-4 to allow clearing and grading of Lot 1 and 2, Block 3, which was previously the Pfeiffer addition, in order to use this fill material in the Blocks 1 and 2, which was previously the Harris addition, thus reducing impacts to the city by transport of fill in from other sites. This revised preliminary all right, so in summary, the staff agree that the situation concerning the fill is unique to the individual property under consideration, and that strict enforcement of this chapter would cause undue hardship on the owner-developer, as is described in Section 94-66, Part 2, under the Board of Zoning Adjustment Functions. You have received a copy of the code section which states such variances shall only be granted when it is demonstrated that such action will be in keeping with the spirit and intent of the provisions of this chapter. And the Board of Zoning Adjustment may impose conditions in granting a variance to ensure compliance and to protect adjacent property. So commissioners were provided a list of 5 staff recommended conditions to be added to the notes section of the preliminary plat for the Harris and Pfeiffer addition in granting of the variance, which I can expound upon if needed. All public notification requirements were met, and one public comment came in requesting that if approved, whether if the grading on the Pfeiffer side could be limited to only the amount needed for the Harris side. Staff recommends approval of the variance contingent on any further staff, city engineer, and planning commissioner comments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gerber. Before we move on to commissioner discussion, we have a public comment form. Alderman Mosley.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, do we need to convene the Board of Adjustment?
We did. We did.
We did?
We did.
Got it now.
We didn't want to wake you up.
It happened fast.
Alderman Mosley, your name and address, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Steve Mosley. I live at 16 Riverwood Place in Maumelle. I've always been concerned about our tree canopy here in Maumelle, trying to do the most I can do to preserve it until a developer or a landowner is ready to go ahead and build something. And so one thing we did, one thing I sponsored was the timber management plan ordinance, which would cause any removal en masse of trees to have to go before the planning commission and the city council. And this would this variance would, I guess, in a way, it would bypass the timber management program option and go ahead and allow those trees to be removed and the land graded all the way down without tree buffers and that sort of thing. I'd like to ask you all to consider this very carefully before granting this variance, just because I'm afraid it'll set a precedent in Maumelle and other developers will begin asking for the same treatment. So anyway, please give it a careful consideration. If you're not entirely comfortable with how you're going to vote, I'd please ask you to table it till the next meeting. I did notice there were only 2, I think, planning commissioners at the subcommittee meeting, and if the other 5 are in any way hesitant to vote for this, I'd certainly appreciate it if you'd wait another session and take a good look. If you do go ahead and approve this, I would like to ask that I think there's going to be excess dirt from that area that would be graded, and I would like to ask if you would limit them to the north side of that and try to leave the south side treed and as is if there's enough dirt available. That way it would be much better aesthetically from Commerce Drive looking in that direction. That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley.
Mr. Chair, and just for a point of clarification, the checklist for the Pfeiffer edition and the variance came out on Monday. For those that picked up their packets over the weekend, those were emailed out, but I did provide printouts for you in front of you, so that printed update is for you. But for Commissioner Johnson and others, that was actually placed in your packet, so you should have the physical copies there, just for your clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Drummer. Any questions or comments from the commission?
Is the applicant here?
Good evening, Mr. Andrews. Name and address, please.
Good evening, Roy Andrews, 3 Monarch Drive, and I have the applicant as well.
Ron Harris, 6309 Southwind Drive, North Little Rock.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We appreciate your time tonight. This is a unique situation. The same owner owns both pieces of property. They are directly across the road from each other. We're still working through our civil design right now, but we're estimating around 60,000 cubic yards of fill material needed on the Harris portion of that. The reason we would like to take that off the Pfeiffer is that's approximately 4,500 truckloads of fill material, and that would be, if we hauled that in for the Harris portion, that'd be 4,500 trucks coming down the boulevard loaded and 45 empty trucks headed back out. Then, when the Pfeiffer edition whatever happens with that property comes along, that would be an additional 60,000 cubic yards hauled out, another 4,500 trucks. So we're talking about 9,000 truckloads of material coming and going, and if we can move those across the street, take advantage of the proximity, I mean, it's literally across kind of a street that's not very busy, then we would limit that going up and down the boulevard. And so we feel that it is a unique situation, and we'd like to take advantage of that. Certainly, we've got to abide by ADEQ, so once we get done, we're going to revegetate it. We're going to make sure that we've taken care of all of the erosion control and any stormwater issues that may cause once we go through engineering design on it.
I have a quick question, and unfortunately I missed a subcommittee meeting. Do you have some appropriations for the road that you'll cross with 4,000
Yeah.
truckloads?
Yes, we'll have to take care of the road, and if we tear the road up, we'll have to fix it. Because we would want to limit that to directly across the road.
One road for both directions?
Yeah.
Okay.
That way we can minimize our construction entrances on both sides.
That section of road has to be dedicated as part of the final. So, yeah, it's not dedicated.
Actually, it is dedicated, and that's, it was dedicated by ordinance, and that's one of the comments on the plat,
Okay.
whenever we get to that.
It's not referenced as such.
It should, yes, it should be. Let's see.
Access and utility, anyway, I know that's next item.
It's not referenced on the
Yeah,
actual,
that's the
I know
way
there's a little
we
bit
can
sticky.
clean that up.
yeah, there's a staff comment that they have to correct that on the existing plat. They did not have that correctly notated.
Mr. Andrews, Roy, how are you? Good evening. Have you done enough work here to know where your cut to balance is?
Not yet,
Are you
I
gonna
don't.
do you know if you're gonna be in surplus or deficit?
I believe will be about even, but I don't know that yet because we haven't done full geotech. So I don't know. I know we've got some swampy area kind of behind, or low area behind the old Kroger,
Mm-hmm.
and I anticipate a little bit of undercut in there. So I don't know. That's what I'm trying to work through.
Now, when the preliminary plat came before us, this buffer, which I think you were sitting on this side of the table at the time, is that buffer, about where that buffer belongs to and is required on your applicant side, or whether it's on the industrial side, a little bit gray. I think we discussed that at subcommittee at that point in time a few months ago. But looking at your grading plan, your intent is to go all the way to the property line. Is there opportunity to begin that cut to provide that buffer without disturbance at this time?
To provide a buffer along the industrial side.
Well, I'm talking about the whole east side of the property. I mean, you got the cut line coming all the way to the property, and you're starting your cut instead of bringing it off, at least giving a 25-foot buffer to the...
I do to try to get the material, because I'm not allowed to leave a cut slope. And so to get that material, we were looking at that, yes.
And what do you mean you're not allowed to use a cut slope?
Per item,
It was a staff recommation.
we didn't want a vertical cut.
Well, that's why I asked you, but I don't know if you're to a point where you know you need the dirt or not. I asked that first.
Based on my preliminary counts, yes, I need all the dirt.
But if we provided a buffer to the rear side, you know, you'd be hauling in some, but not all.
Yes, but not all of it, that's correct.
So we have a 25-foot building setback and that drainage easement, so you wouldn't have, so you can't have any vertical cut at all regardless of the geotechnical condition?
No, that was just a staff comment. When we were looking at other buffers that would be required, I was gonna have to do it with vertical cut to get the material out of there, to have enough.
Well, if you can't do it with vertical, then you'd still have to haul inside, but not as much.
Correct,
And then that way we'd have a buffer remaining around the property.
correct.
Further questions, comments from the commission?
Yeah, going along with what Mr. Johnson was saying, and part of the concern Mr. Mosley had was kind of one of the questions I had, is that on the east side, Lot 2, since there isn't any plans at this juncture that we know of, what potentially is going to take place, and go along with what Craig was saying, how much of this are you going to have to take and level down both Lot 2 and Lot 1?
Yes, right now, that's what we believe based on our preliminary caps, because in the middle of the lot, there's not a lot of take. There's kind of a draw about in the middle where Lot 2, Block 3 text is. There's not a lot of cut right in there. And that's actually where we would have detention. It kind of naturally slopes into that area. And so there's not a big take in that area. The big takes are more on the north and the south end of that.
I think I also heard you say too that once you have taken the dirt, that you're gonna vegetate
We have to
both
vegetate.
of those?
Yes. Everything we disturb, we have to revegetate.
That was the
80
question that I
cube.
had, because I know that on the other side of this, where they did all that dirt work in the actual industrial, this has never been revegetated.
Right, it's been natural.
Yeah.
Commissioner Fisher, ADEQ would require them within 2 weeks of completion
Okay.
to do
To have
that.
I just
vegetation
want to make
grow.
sure
Or
that-
have it stabilized in some way until vegetation can grow.
Well, if it's a pile of rocks, you're not gonna get grass to grow on that.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do something.
Weeping love grass.
So my question ties in with, two commissioners, and I may not know that all the technical words that
That's
you're
okay.
all using, but I'll speak as a resident as well. That was my question, so I'm coming in to my first meeting, trying to catch up, and my question was, what is planned for Lot 2, Block 3, where the dirt's coming? So it sounds like it's fill dirt, it's, my concern too is what erosion will happen, and if you're going to vegetate it, how long does it take to restore to the look that we want? And I understand the savings, garnered for that, for the project, understand limitations to the streets and protecting all of that. But I guess, too, from an appearance, and is a Timberland, the management plan, something we looked at or didn't look at? And that's just my question to all of us to catch myself up.
We did look at the timber management plan, and with the 75-foot buffers, I would have a vertical cut in the front and a vertical cut in the back. I basically need to dig a pit to try to get as much material as I could out of it.
Yeah, but that's assuming you're gonna go to balance. You could get that dirt from somewhere else.
That's correct. And then I'm truckloads down.
I mean,
Then
there'd
I'm
be
truckloads
you'd
down
be
the boulevard.
minimizing, you would be some. I don't know if that's a 20 or 90-10 or 85-15.
So I guess my question then, we use that dirt, we're still not sure if we have to get more. So we've already destroyed or used that dirt, shifted it, have a lot of work there to rebuild it, and there are no other plans to use it for development. It will just go back with vegetation, or down the road.
We would vegetate it. Within 14 days, I have to have it either grass growing or I have to have straw on it to keep the erosion down. And then, yes, I want it to get vegetated, or I have to keep maintaining the straw and silt fence.
So that doesn't mean, again, I'm sorry, planting of trees, it's simply erosion.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Commissioner, former Commissioner Andrews, I should say, old habits. Have y'all looked into what the efforts in hauling would be required to remove all of these trees that would have to be knocked down? I mean, we're talking about trying to avoid trucks on the boulevard, but I mean, what are your efforts gonna require to remove all the vegetation that you have to take out to get to the dirt?
I don't know the number of trucks, that's right. And those, it's a good question, but those trucks would happen either now or in the future as well. So I'm really trying to minimize the amount of dirt. The 9,000 trucks is what I'm targeting.
You're just gonna pile that and burn it. Get burned
I don't,
or they on a harvest.
if we can harvest, we'll harvest them, yes.
That'll
I don't know
probably
that-
that'll probably be, fire marshal would make that determination whether the smoke would be allowed in the area, if they would need them to mulch on site.
You already got our answer.
I believe the fire marshal is shaking his head no.
So those will be hauled off. Some of it might be mulch so that we can use it for stabilization efforts.
to Councilmember Mosley's point, we do not feel that we are setting a precedent because we have a developer that owns both sides of the street. That is very rare, and we simply have an option to reduce cost and to make a piece of land that's not buildable for future development. So and I thought it was a win-win.
Gentlemen, something else that's been mentioned to me is the pending rezoning on these parcels of property going to have any impact on whether this needs to be done or not?
No, the only one that has the potential is the other Lot 2, Block 3, and Lot 1, Block 3. No, that doesn't affect that.
Mr. Gromer, so, is this considered a modification to the development plan? Or no? No, it's just a preliminary plat only?
Right, so the development plan, there's no modification to that. This is basically taking one preliminary plat for the development plan that was approved, taking the preliminary plat for the Pfeiffer and combining them. And the primary purpose on our side is delineating that street right-of-way that was previously dedicated, but we don't have anything showing the delineation of that. So by combining this, it makes it easier for them to delineate that road, but at the same time, utilizing the ability to lot block and look at a variance for the grading.
My concern, I brought this up at subcommittee meeting as well too, and although I wish Mr. Harris and Mr. Pfeiffer the best of luck, but things change from time to time, as we all know, is that we start cutting ground here and they only develop half this and we only need half the dirt, then I just don't want a borrow pit operation going on out here. So the question to that is that when Mr. Andrews submits his plan for this, is there a way that he has to adhere to that? Or could they open up a borrow pit operation and run dirt out of this? So they develop half this property and it's either going or it's not. And I know that's not Mr. Harris's plan. But what prevents them from changing this at some point without approval?
So that's one of the, so in the list of 5 recommendations that we had that's at the bottom of that variance sheet, and also the commissioners can add conditions onto the variance with this. So if there's a condition that you wish to add on there, you can do that, and they have to stick with that. Having the notes on the preliminary plat is what we use as the identifiers. That also, so first off, and I'll just run through these real quick. Number 1, Lot 1 and Lot 2 of Block 3, which is the Pfeiffer side, grading allowed per approved variance to Section 94-4. So just putting on the preliminary plat that if the variance is approved, that it's notated on the plat. Final development plan and plat must be approved prior to any grading and excavation on Block 1 and 2. So basically just saying that they have to get their final done and we have to review it and approve it before they do the grading. Now that's on Block 1 and 2, which is the Harris side. That's not the Pfeiffer side. The final plat must be approved and filed for Lot 1 and 2, Block 3, prior to any grading excavation work. So basically, the Pfeiffer side that they're wanting to take the dirt from, they have to file that plat, which will become record in the county, and those notes that are on that record are the things that they have to adhere to. So that's putting these notes on that plat makes it a condition by which they have to stay, and that's what we hold them to. Number 4, an approved grading, drainage, and swept plan by the city engineer required prior to any construction activity taking place on all the blocks. So they have to provide the specific details by which they plan to grade and how they plan to finish the land, and that has to be approved by staff and the city engineer before it goes forward. And then number 5, all finished grades on Lot 1 and 2 of Block 3 must be sloped with no visible cuts, and if a site plan has not been submitted for review and approval prior to completion of grading work, all graded areas must have all topsoil restored and reseeded to control erosion at a minimum. So again, if they're going to start it, they have to get it to a point to where it at least looks finished. From a staff standpoint, when we're evaluating this, and all staff have their input on this, both Public Works that deals with streets, our standpoint from planning, the mayor's office, everyone. One of the biggest concerns we saw was based on the amount of cut and grade that has to happen on both these sites and the infill, the amount of trucks could create a significant impact on the infrastructure, as well as inconvenience to citizens with these trucks running up and down Maumelle Boulevard where we have our traffic. So minimizing that was one of the first things that we looked at. And then on the other side was trying to stay to the intent of the ordinance. The timber management plan, we looked at that. That actually was the way that we started to move forward, but that we realized that by them cutting that, you would have a bowl in the center. It'd create some drainage issues, and it would you would still be able to see behind the trees based on the location. So requiring them to set it up in a way that they have to finish it out when they're done, and it's going to be either reseeded or if they have a site plan that comes forward, then at that point we'll look at the landscape plan and the things that are going to create the screens to the industrial park. So from staff standpoint, we feel like just this situation, because they're in close proximity, it does make sense, it is unique, and it'll be staff requirement to hold them accountable once all this is approved, and any conditions that whether we provide or the commission provides that you want them to adhere to.
Yeah, although I have a great appreciation for the safety in the trucks, that's a temporary measure. A scar on the side of the hill is forever until something gets there, and we don't know when that timing is going to be. And that's what I'm worried about, protecting. I keep referencing back there by Christian Brothers. That's been open for a long period of time, and being able to protect that. So, to me, it's like this, and I don't know. I'm trying to tie these two together, and maybe we can. Is that to me, this grading activity is part of the development plan on the west side of the property. So, to me, is like whatever they're planning on doing on the east side, which is just moving dirt, but I don't think Roy's quite finished with the design to know what that's going to look like yet, although he has some preliminary contour lines on here, but I don't think that they have arrived. Is that, to me, it all goes together. So whatever they're planning on the east side to leave, I just don't want them to come back. I don't know that they can't come back in there and touch that after it's done. So from plat and get dirt, haul dirt. So you're saying once the grading plan is complete, they have to finish the grading plan? Are they going to do the grading plan? If they're going to open this up in phases, I don't know if they intend on doing all the phases at one time. Is it just half the dirt, and then the rest is to remain? Because they're going to go in and clear all this property out, regardless if they're just going to take half the dirt now.
All the grading activity would happen on the front side. That site's not big enough, and where our detention ponds are, it's going to be prudent to move it at once and get it done.
Staff recommendation number 5 basically says you're going to restore the topsoil. Got any idea how many truckloads of dirt topsoil that's going to take?
We would want to push topsoil off that's there and spread it back out.
You sure there's topsoil there?
You got any geotechnical work done yet, Roy?
No, not on that side. I've walked it. And there's a lot of rock on the surface.
Yeah, on the southeast side looks to be.
And yeah, there's not a lot of grass growing. It's just leaf litter.
What about providing a buffer on the front too, with just maybe 2 to 3 outlets for you to move the dirt? That way it provides a continuous buffer and screen if we kept the 25 foot all the way around.
Say that again, Craig.
I just say, just to provide a screening buffer until that develops, is that go ahead and provide the 25 foot all the way around the property, and inclusive of 25 foot buffer around lot 2, block 3, as well as lot 1, block 3.
You talking about
whatever
digging a
dirt
hole?
ends up coming out, if he's a little short, then he ends up hauling that in. That way it still yet provides a complete screen until whatever is done for development.
Are you talking about basically digging a hole?
Oh, well, he has to work the grading plan out
It
with
would
SWIP.
limit the amount of fill we could bring out.
It still has to be approved by the city engineer. No, I don't know. I would let Mazan or whomever work through that with staff. I wouldn't think that we would approve a pond in the middle. I would hope not.
Yeah, of course, the one thing we're dealing with here is this is what, the 8th month that we've looked at this, month after month? And I distinctly remember at one time, lot 2, block 3, maybe lot 1, block 3, I saw something that showed buildings being on it.
Sure, it was
Do we have any idea, I know Mr. Pfeiffer's not here, but do we have any idea what his plans are?
No, there were some preliminary plans that said, okay, what could you do on that? And so we,
So it could sit there for another 10 years.
don't think so, it's not going to.
Well, he's had
Well,
this property
he's had his
a
property
long
for
time.
But
Mhm.
not with the
We don't
acti-
know that.
Not with the activity on the west side getting ready to happen.
Yeah,
I
but
don't see it.
but the west side has been vacant for many, many years that Gene has owned it.
And
So,
we're talking about the future, not the past.
I understand that, but again, we're talking about lots 1 and 2, block 3.
True.
And, you know, you're gonna sit there and basically level it.
We're gonna make that land more valuable so that we can figure out what to do with it. And then, I agree, we could easily do a 25-foot buffer off the street and then do whatever, you know, we needed to or required to the east of that. I think would be the you know, the more prudent thing to do. I understand about the area that was further east that some of y'all keep talking about, but again, that's the past. We're talking about, you know, the future. So we can't go back and fix what was not done before.
So I just don't want this particular site to sit there and look,
No, it won't help sell it.
you know.
So one thing we can't predict what's gonna happen, of course, things change. But from the timing of things that come through our department and part of the notes, so in order for them to get a final development plan and a plat on the Harris edition, they're gonna have to get the civil plans pretty much done because that's gonna set how the final plat and plan is done. So once they've spent that money and they've gone through the process of getting that, then you're basically shovel ready on the Harris side.
Yes.
So with that, there should not be any grading happening on the Pfeiffer side until they're really pretty much ready to start. So then the dirt movement kind of happens. So I guess my point being is if the Harris side actually happens and comes in and they've done their work and it's all approved, then it's more than likely going to see some changes in the area which could exacerbate opportunities on the Pfeiffer side. But anyway, they've been etching through this process all year, and it has been a process for them.
Well, and again, we're looking at cost and letting bids, and so if you don't have to truck material in and you can get it across the street, that obviously changes the whole economic dynamic of per lot sales or whatever it is. So that's why there's been some hesitation holding up for this very day.
I don't have any problem with exactly what you're saying, and I can see the economic benefit to it, and I don't have a concern about that. What I've got a concern about is this is gonna look like, and for how long.
And that's true, but you know, when I start my marketing and my presentations and I see how it's gonna develop over here, I'm hearing things that throughout Mississippi, Baton Rouge, these retirement deals where, you know, it could be some nice, what do you call it, commercial space up there for seniors. I got workout centers, I got dermatologists, I got not pediatricians, just pediatricians. I got ophthalmologists. I mean, I don't know, but again, I know about the left side.
I know that.
And so, I mean, we're excited about that, and
It's gonna be, at some point, if we continue to haul off, and I don't know how Christian Brothers has managed to keep doing that and
Just comment.
I know, but it's gonna start costing money if we don't reestablish it and get it cleaned up and get off of it once the dirt contractor's gone. Because
Okay.
once he's gone, we're done and out from that standpoint, and we're into smaller equipment and don't even have the means at that point.
What would happen if you sold this, and I guess this is to Scott, is that, so he decides he cuts this down and he sells the piece of property. So he's got a buyer, comes in and they wanna do their own thing, they sell that piece of property. So, then is he locked, I don't think that he's locked in any way to develop that property. I think he can do with it what he wants if it's by right. Correct?
Correct.
Greg, I think the answer to your Christian Brother deal is that's North Little Rock.
understand. Well, that's why I don't care to have that on our side of the fence, with all due respect to Little Rock. And the domicile location of Mr. Harris. I mean, I could live with a little bit if we did a 25-foot buffer and, 2 to 3 cuts through here to get, and then it provides a permanent screen. Ron seems to be okay with that, but I'd like to run it around both lots. My preference is for Roy to finish the design, and maybe we could do a little bit more than that and keep some packages of trees in there. I don't know, but he's not through. He seems to be pretty convinced that he's got to go all the way back and cut down, and that he's going to be short, which I believe him. But at least that leaves some buffer in there, although we don't have any right to keep that, other than it has to be landscaped with whatever comes along. It's just, that would be my recommendation, maybe in the middle.
We talked about that from day one, is leaving a tree line there and having exit sites, come through.
Well, I would want it shown on the plat. So, one thing to talk about it, the other thing is to make sure that happens.
We can add that to the final.
Well, no, I mean, I think that it's a temporary screen until whatever comes. So it goes with the plat. If he ends up selling it, and somebody comes in by right, they would develop it in accordance with the requirements of C3 at the time.
So in clarification on that, Commissioner Johnson, you're interested in temporary.
I'm putting that out more for discussion. If it's just, I'm not trying to talk anybody into it.
You're saying what we're already gonna do, so.
It's not what's drawn, Mr. Harris.
We can add that to the plat and make it a condition of the.
Just add it to one of the notes on the variance that would be added to the
Yes.
plat condition.
Yes.
Back to,
Shown.
This is a plat and this has contours on it, so that's why it says a developed plan. Plat usually doesn't, but anyway, the contours are going all the way to the back. I don't even know that the contours need to be on the plat for that matter.
They don't.
So,
Not on the final, they're not.
no disturbance, orange fence to be placed prior to any excavating activity over there to make sure that the buffer is ensured to be intact. Sometimes the contractors get a little confused about that line. I've noted that by experience. But then a 25-foot buffer around the whole perimeter, orange fencing at the buffer to be in place prior to starting any excavation. That's my recommendation on the note. And then that's going to be for both Lot 2, Block 3, as well as Lot 1, Block 3. And then for
Around the perimeter, I don't have to do it down between Lot 2 and Lot 1.
I would prefer it down because we don't know what's going to, my guess is Lot 1, Block 3 is going to be sold. Or he wouldn't plat it that way to begin with. So I'd like to see the buffer to be maintained.
Yeah, but I don't have to do it on the interior property line,
Well, I'm talking about.
just the perimeter property line.
I think Commissioner Johnson is referring to an individual perimeter around each individual line.
Correct.
So there would be a fence row, if you will, of trees between the two.
Right.
Okay.
And that's just to protect the development between the two.
So I'm 50 feet in there that I can't excavate?
How about we split the difference there and do 12 and a half? I don't know. I'm just trying to create a screen there between the two. If you had interest in the whole Lot 2, Block 3, you would have platted it for both. That's not what's going on. You have 2 lots in there. So I would like to see the buffer, my preference is like to see the buffer 25 foot each side of there until we see a development plan or a plat for whatever's going to happen there.
Yeah,
So,
that does create kind of a whole situation on that lot. That's what, and then I have to have a separate detention pond with my calcs.
Yeah, I see that in the grading plan. Yeah, I'd probably agree. It'd probably be better just to do it around the perimeter from a grading perspective. Or you're going to create a problem on the grading side if that, and you're cutting all that out. What's the setback on that? 10 foot? Yeah. pole. I've not heard you anything about this, Scott. Are you okay with adding that as far as the perimeter? I don't know what your thoughts are between lot 1 and lot 2, if you want to screen that or not.
Well, I think and if you're talking about a natural screening of leaving the trees that are there, I would have to see that on a plan to see how they plan on, how the finished grade would be, determine if it's even feasible or not.
I don't think that it is.
It's not,
It's going to be
yeah.
difficult. I don't disagree with Mr. Andrews about that. I'm willing to concede on that and just put it around the perimeter of the property of lot 1. So you go the west, east, and south boundary of lot 1, block 3, and then the west, north, and east boundary of lot 2, block 3.
Now, if you put a buffer between the two, I mean, it makes it impossible to grade.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, after looking at it, I don't disagree with Roy's comment. There is or not?
Yes.
Yeah. But if they want to come in and landscape that, they can, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, or they want to build a retaining wall, they can. Okay, I don't have any other comment. I'm okay, I mean, I'll support the variance if the client's going to concede to that, and it sounds like he is, but it's just not drawn that way, so.
yes, we will add the
Appreciate that.
perimeter buffer, no disturbance with fence.
And then, I guess as far as the cut through, you know, just looking at moving dirt, three enough, 3 entrances?
3 is plenty.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
maybe we could do it to 2.
If I can
You're not
get
going
it
to do
to
any more
2.
than you have to.
Correct, if I can get it to 1.
Yeah, would make sense for him. But again, we need to clearly note that, needs to be a note on the plan up to how many we're going to allow.
Okay, up to
What's
3.
the width of them?
I don't know, I'll let Mazan work that. I mean, you know, you have 2 trucks passing, they probably 40, 50 feet for safety, something like that.
Yeah, and then if I'm doing one way and I do 2 or 3, then I'm
You
gonna
may
be
one way in,
smaller.
one way out, you know, make it down to 20. Don't feel like I have to
And
restrict that.
part of that is I might want input from Public Works and other departments when it comes to the traffic and how to mitigate some of that, so they may have better recommendations. Of course, the street department's intent is to protect the road.
Right.
So yeah, but any recommendations we can have on the grading plan when it comes in.
Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, does anyone have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the proposed variance request for section 94.4 for building permit on lot 1 and 2 of block 3 of Harrison Pfeiffer Edition preliminary plat contingent on meeting all staff, city engineer, and planning commissioner comments.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Those opposed, no. Variance is approved. I will now adjourn the Board of Zoning Adjustment and reconvene the Planning Commission. We'll move back to item number 1, the revised preliminary plat for the Harrison Pfeiffer Edition. Staff report, please.
All right, so as I mentioned, for those that picked up their packet this week, it was in your packet. For those that picked your packets up over the weekend, in front of you, there was a checklist laid out, and this was emailed to you as well, so you should have received this one by email. I won't restate. You're familiar with the intent of the plat, the things that we notated from staff comments. They have, so let me just go through this. It is combined from 2 previous approved preliminary plats. The purpose of the combine is delineating the correct right-of-way for Commercial Park Drive, which was previously thought not to have been dedicated, but was found to be dedicated in the city in 2004 by Ordinance 547. Also, the applicant is seeking a variance to that, which was approved just recently. So the revised preliminary must match both previously approved plats. The following corrections are needed on the plat. In addition to the checklist, the applicant has they corrected the majority of the issues but with the exception of the alley, they're showing alley access easement. So there was an alley access easement in the Harris side that was shown between houses. That easement needs to be shown. It's just not indicated on there. The drainage easement adjacent to the right-of-way should have a clear boundary or create a lot marked as drainage easement. So that's the second drainage that's on the south side of Commercial Park Drive. You have notated on the plat 70-foot access and utility easement as per ordinance 547. That's incorrect. It has to be stated as 70-foot right-of-way per ordinance 547. And then if variance to section 94-4 is approved for block 3, add the plat notes and commissioner comments by staff, city engineer, and planning commissioners. So with that, staff recommends, where's my recommendation? Staff recommends approval of the revised, staff recommends approval of the revised preliminary plat for Harrison Pfeiffer addition contingent on meeting all staff, city engineer, and planning commissioner comments.
Thank you, Mr. Cromer. Questions or comments from the commission?
Back to my initial question, just to make sure I'm straight on this, is that there's not a plat that exists showing that right-of-way dedicated, only an ordinance making reference. So in this case, that we'll have a dedicated plat showing the right-of-way to clean that up. Thank you.
If it exists, we don't have it, basically. Or if there was a map that was attached as an exhibit, we don't have it.
Further questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the revised preliminary plat for the Harris Pfeiffer addition contingent on meeting all staff, city engineer, and planning commissioner comments.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. All right, preliminary plat is approved. We will move on to.
Thank you.
Now, item group number 3, the Center Point Training Facility. Staff report, please.
Okay. So on this one, this property is located at 101 Bringler Drive. Baldwin and Shell is the applicant representative. It's a proposed amended landscape plan and a proposed variance to section 14-114E. The applicant submitted a building permit for the purpose of remodeling an industrial building located on Bringler Drive, fronting Maumelle Boulevard. The initial application did not trigger site plan review, but as the project progressed, additional requests were made to include the addition of a perimeter fence for security reasons and the installation of minor drainage improvements on the site. Upon review by the planning director and discussion with the city engineer, it was determined that the drainage improvement was minor in nature and did not need further review, but the location for the drain caused a reduction in the natural screen of the building. This work was shown not to be in the required 50-foot natural buffer between the building and Maumelle Boulevard, but increased the visibility to the building when added with their site improvements along the corner and down Bringler Drive. With the addition of the proposed security fence, staff triggered a requirement for an amended landscape plan to the site in order to accommodate these changes and in keeping with section 94-411 of Division 4 Industrial Park. As noted in section 114-14, quasi-public utility storage yards in the industrial park are excluded from the requirements of the fence ordinance, and a metal-type fence shall be deemed to comply and shall not constitute a violation if the fence is vinyl coated. The code speaks to a minimum fence setback of 25 feet when abutting residential property lines, but this property does not directly abut a residential property line. Thus, the 25-foot requirement does not apply. Staff denied the fence due to the nature of design needed to be considered with an improved landscape plan in keeping with the intent of section 94-411 and its proximity to Maumelle Boulevard. Staff considers the powder coat black color to be comparable to vinyl coat from a visual standpoint in this situation, and considers the design of the security fence with its opaque nature and black color to comply with the broad description in the ordinance of metal type. Furthermore, the exclusion does not state limits on fence height, which fences in the industrial park tend to be taller due to the security needs of facilities. The combination of the fence and proposed landscape appears to be complementary to one another and appears to provide a significant improvement over the previous landscaping. Lastly, staff feels the existing natural buffer of 50 feet along the boulevard, when added to the proposed improvements, together meet the intent of section 94-411, providing a carefully landscaped, tailored, and groomed environment, and generally shields the resident and visitor to the city from the industries. All public notification requirements were met and no public comments were received. Staff recommends approval of the proposed landscape plan to include approval of the variance to section 14-114E to allow the proposed security fence as designed, contingent on any further staff, city engineer, and planning commissioner comments. And I'll conclude that the applicant has worked very well, and they've done a very good job within the landscape plan to create the natural screening that we feel will be complementary to screening the fence itself that's going up. The facility itself is to be utilized for training for CenterPoint Energy. They'll be bringing people in from even out of state to train on site. They will have equipment in the area inside the facility which they fear they need protection from. So the security fence is warranted.
City Attorney, are we hearing these items together?
And I'm sorry, the variance does not require Board of Zoning adjustment. When I reviewed that with the city attorney, when we looked at it, it comes out of section 14, and it states that the Planning Commission may approve the variance. It doesn't go into Board of Zoning adjustments, which is meant for section or zoning ordinance, chapter 94.
So do you want to solicit a vote for both or both items at the same time?
It'll be a separate vote, because you'll have the proposed amended landscape plan first, or, well, either way, if you take them out of order, but it will be two separate votes.
And she is correct. I did say the both mainly because we needed to see the fence as it pertains to the landscape plan, how they both need to work together in order to create the necessary screening.
So there's not a preference of ordinance, of order?
Looks like the agenda has the landscape plan first.
Just making sure it's okay.
I might suggest, since you've already made the motion and voted to hear things out of order, if you wish to have the discussion on the fence first, if you do not do the security fence, it could impact the overall land. We may require an amendment or a modification of the landscape plan to show what they can do.
Is the only thing that's triggering it, is it this vinyl versus powder coat?
Well, so the specifics of the ordinance, that's the vinyl and the powder. Specifically, it states that. So that's the one thing that triggered it. But the other thing, which isn't necessarily in the exclusion for the fence ordinance, it's with the intent of the industrial park, with the screening being right on the boulevard and within 200 feet of the boulevard in some areas. We needed to make sure that they had the appropriate screen to block the fence. So the height came into question, and the nature of it, it's more of getting visibility to the Planning Commission versus staff review, because this is right on the boulevard. It's a huge impact.
Yeah, if I recall, when we were having previous discussions before that got tabled to tonight, that the fencing, security fencing that they're asking for is to protect apparently equipment or whatever is inside that area. My question is, why is that fence going all the way around the building and coming also down Maumelle Boulevard to that height? Is somebody there to speak on that?
I believe the applicant representative is here. You can speak to that.
Name and address, please.
Christian Martin, 3300 Seminole Trail in Sherwood. Sorry, question again, please?
Yeah, my question was is that the security fencing that you're proposing was to protect whatever equipment or whatever may be in that yard, in the parking area. But on the plan, you've got it coming all the way around the building and coming down Maumelle Boulevard. Why does it need to have that?
The northwest corner has brand new air handler units, compressors, condensers, mechanical equipment.
But that calls for high security fencing? I don't think so.
To tie everything together and have the complete security of the site, the owner requested to take that all the way around and tie it back in on the northwest corner.
One point of that clarification, on our site plan, anytime you have mechanical equipment, it's supposed to be screened. Currently, that mechanical equipment is not screened, and it wasn't previously, so this actually is providing screening for that mechanical equipment.
It's showing screening on here.
It's color coded. The blue is a metal panel, solid screen.
Yeah.
And then the security fence ties into that.
What Commissioner Fisher is saying, you don't need both. You just need
Right. You know, that doesn't make sense, but, you know.
Well, you can.
Is there theft out there? Or does anybody know that they're stealing the compressor? Is that your client's concern, that they're gonna steal the ATVs?
The client's concern is total site security. That's what is in that corner up there is brand new mechanical equipment. You know, I think Chairman Grummer said before there was nothing screened before. It was sitting out on individual pads and it was very visible from the boulevard. So now we have solid.
Well, no, back off a little bit. There was tree screening before the trees were removed from
There
the
still
area.
are trees there.
Not screening the way it was. But that's beside the point. If your client wants security, then why aren't they putting the security fence all the way around the whole property?
Well, it ties in at the southeast and the northwest corner. There's nothing to protect on the Boulevard Bringler intersection.
And
It's also more visible fencing on that corner. That'd be more fence that you guys don't want to see on the boulevard.
Is there building access within that mechanical yard area?
There's an emergency egress from the second floor that goes out through a secured gate to get out for second floor fire egress.
And Jason, he reviewed this as well, if he has any additional comments on the landscape plan.
So commissioners, if you're familiar with this building, it's metal up to a point and then it turns into a brick, what your typical brick facade looks like. So the fencing they're proposing ties in right where the brick and the metal meet. Also on this, they did tear out some trees, but they left a 50-foot buffer as we required from their property line off of Maumelle Boulevard. So they stayed outside of that 50-foot buffer that we required. So they did have to remove some trees in order to put better drainage in on their property, because that area back there where those compressors were was very flat and it was very swampy. So they put some additional stormwater drainage essentially in around there, and then it comes around the side. So their fencing on that Maumelle Boulevard side is still screened by that 50-foot tree buffer. That's standard along the rest of the boulevard with the rest of any industrial areas. And then they started up again after that first entry along Bringler. And then it follows there along Bringler, and then all the way around on Murphy and onto that north side.
One of the things that we looked at when we were looking at this was also that whether if we could add additional landscaping and screening in that area. But because of the amount of trees and the canopy that's in there, it was stated that it would be very difficult to grow anything because of that.
Anything from new, I mean,
right.
You'll get seedling stuff dropping and sprouting eventually. But
Welcome, Christian.
Oh, thank you.
So there's the fencing that's going along the boulevard is this 2.5-inch OD post. It has the
barbed wire.
perhaps we could do it at, perhaps a different screening, secure screening on the front to the boulevard, rather than it look like a compound. You see what I'm saying?
Sure, and I think we talked, Scott Germer and I talked, possibly of just making that whole northwest corner solid metal panel screening, and just providing maybe the security fence at the gate to get you out of the second floor, if that would be more acceptable. It would look like the building facade itself on the boulevard. It would be the same metal panel.
I understand the security, and especially with your client, I understand who he is too, but, you know, maybe just something a little bit more architecturally pleasing, perhaps, rather than it having this 3-strand barbed wire and this very nice building. You're gonna put you're sinking a ton of money in landscaping.
Correct.
It's gonna look nice, of which we appreciate, but it's got this 3-strand barbed wire running, you know, on the front and side where everybody drives by every single day.
And that it is, yes, it is there in that corner, but it is also still stood behind that landscape buffer, and it is black. So as you're driving down the boulevard at 45 miles an hour, looking through a canopy of trees with shade through a black fence.
Isn't there a stoplight there?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
And yes, you can see through those trees what's been.
I go this way every day. I
Sure.
go by this building every.
Sure.
You know, sometimes it's 6 days a week and 7 days a week.
Sure.
So, so I'm familiar with it.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, we've talked about possibly changing the whole northwest corner to a metal panel, which would then match the building veneer. And it would be, I guess, high enough to not have the barbed wire on it, but we'd still need that small section between the two screens to have a secure gate to get out, which would not be as visible. We could even set it back from the panel face a little bit.
I'll be okay with that.
I mean, you know, I think I've got the biggest problem with the boulevard barbed wire. I mean, yeah, maybe you can see it, maybe you can't see it, but.
Oh, if you're at
you
the
know,
stoplight, you'll see it.
Yeah.
Especially with all the leaves
And,
on the
you
trees,
know,
you'll see it.
I don't think that on that side would be that necessary. And I don't think that anybody's gonna go in there and remove your air conditioners out of that property. Now, if the building sat vacant and the air conditioners were there, yeah, probably.
Hmm.
But, once you get in and get operating, I don't think so. But that's me. And I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of what you can see on the boulevard. What you've done down Bringler, at first I had a problem with it, but after I saw the landscape and what you're doing there, I think it's gonna look nice. I just have a problem on the boulevard.
Is it the barbed wire or is it the fence itself?
Well, I think the fence itself, with what you're talking about, will probably be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've got a real problem with the barbed wire around that. And I think, you know, even going on the north side of the building, I can see where you can bring that fence with the barbed wire into the building, like you done on the front.
Mm-hmm.
And then just have your normal fencing going around. I think that would look fine. You know, but, you know, on the north side, I guess that's the north side.
The north is page up, yes.
Yes.
It's all trees and
Yeah, it's all trees.
detention
so,
area.
Yeah, that's probably not a big deal. But coming down the boulevard side, that's where I've got the problem.
So my question, with regard to security and the visible, barbed wire, whatever that fencing's called, are there other security measures to take, like cameras or just on that side?
There will be some cameras in the parking lot pointing back towards the building and towards the larger east side of the parking lot.
So that building's, like business hours, like 8 to 5 or something, it's not 24 hours?
It's 8 to 5 normally. They could possibly work as a disaster response center. If they had a natural disaster, they could mobilize out of there and move on. It's got a generator so it could stay powered to work out of. But normal business hours would be 8 to 5.
So if a camera that couldn't replace that one side, and just get a camera on that side and not have the unsightly?
On the north side?
That side that faces Maumelle.
Yeah. The fence that we've got in the packet is the center points. That's their standard fence for all their facilities. That's where this came from. I think the barbed wire concession would probably be not a problem on the boulevard side. I don't know that a camera would be enough because there are doors to get in the building on that side. But I think the barbed wire coming down on the north side would not be an issue.
And that side more, the Maumelle Boulevard side is more from emergency or servicing the AC units.
Correct. It's a second floor emergency egress,
Yeah.
and then there's a first floor egress door as well.
So, I mean, you know, it wouldn't be used that often.
No, only emergencies.
All right, so.
Further discussion?
Do you know if your client would be okay with the screening methodology that you proposed?
Which one, dropping the barbed wire or the metal panels?
I don't know how that's stacked. Scott and they're more picky about that. I'm not enamored with the fencing on that side of the building. I like to go with a different, more pleasing security measure, whatever that is. And you said it was a screening, just something more secure. I went back and looked at the fence, so it's not open and woven, it's closed woven.
It's an anti-cut, anti-climb.
Yeah.
So it provides more of a solid barrier than a traditional chain link fence would, but it's also more difficult to scale or to cut into.
It's powder coated, it'll look better than vinyl.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't think, I agree with you, Scott.
I don't
Are you okay with that, Mike, just to say, cut the barbed wire off the top of it? And
Yeah, I'm fine with
shorten
just
that
taking the
and then-
barbed wire off the
I
top
think
of
that
it.
may look better than vinyl.
Yeah.
Okay. Just
You
run
know,
the barbed wire on that side.
Anti-cut, anti-climb and all this other stuff, I don't think is necessary on that side, but that's just me personally.
Well,
But-
the anti-climb also kind of obviates some of the need for the barbed wire up top as well.
Yeah.
Correct.
Do you know if your client may have protocol in place that all mechanical equipment be protected too, for all of us, so it may be protocol.
But this all came out of, yes, corporate requirement.
Well, and, yeah, never mind.
Further discussion?
We'll make the comment to drop the barbed wire on the top there. In the middle.
Just in the area specific, you're talking about on the west side?
Well, yeah, directionally west.
All our side.
Yeah,
Correct.
only that area, the rest of the area
Yeah,
would
the rest of-
remain.
Yeah, I understand, the rest of that.
Further discussion?
Okay.
Since we don't have a formal motion to consider these out of order, we do have two potential motions in item number 3, sub-item A and sub-item B. So if anybody does make a motion, please clarify what you are requesting we vote on.
You probably have to vote on B first, since we haven't even talked about landscape.
Make a motion.
Do we need to make a motion to amend the agenda, or?
Yeah.
Well,
If you so choose.
You're the chairman.
Facilitating here, make the motion.
Thank you.
I make a motion
Thank-
that we hear and make motion on item 3B, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. All right, item 3B is officially up for consideration. Do we have any further discussion? And if not, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the variance section 114E for the fence ordinance to allow the proposed fence for the Centerpoint Training Facility contingent on any other staff or commissioner comments, with the condition of the variance to remove the barbed wire shortened posts on that west side.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. All right, variance is approved. I guess we'll go back to item 3A, the landscape plan. Do we have a separate staff report that we have not yet covered?
Excellent plan, it's good.
Yeah.
Very thorough.
Unless anybody's got any discussion on that, I might make a motion to approve the amended landscape plan for the Centerpoint Training Facility contingent upon meeting all staff, city engineering, planning commission comments.
Second. Motion in 2 seconds. Any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Yes. And those opposed, no.
Yeah, very nice
Thank you.
landscape plan.
The
It's
pictures
gonna
are
look
not
nice.
bad.
Appreciate it.
I would say that, Mr. Austin, I see Austin Paul.
Crafton Tool Engineers, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, we'll move on to item number
Thank you.
4,
Thank you,
the
Christian.
Old Water Treatment Facility, Maumelle Country Club. Mr. Grummer, staff report, please.
So the applicant is requesting a waiver to section 94-12 to allow them to submit an application for a rezoning request to the old water treatment plant facility at 99 Club Manor Drive. The last request happened less than 12 months ago, which request was approved to rezone the property from open space to PRD for the purpose of developing 5 single-family estate homes on the golf course. All public notification requirements were met and no public comments were received. Staff recommends, actually, we'll leave it up to the commission on the waiver.
They indicated their preferred zoning if we allow the waiver?
So they have, so they did also submit a application for rezoning from PRD to PCD.
We asked them to pull it down at subcommittee.
It won't come until next month if this
We
passes.
suggested that the waiver be heard first, Mr. Chair.
No, I understand. It's, well, the reason for the waiver is germane to this discussion. Commissioner, questions or comments?
This is the second waiver, right?
I'm sorry?
We waived this is the second waiver, right?
It is the second waiver, so historically, the first request to PRD was denied because of the density that was proposed.
Yeah, I was just, Mr. Harris brought this before, correct?
Yes, he did.
So, okay, I was just trying to remember.
And as I was absent at subcommittee, have they given an expressed development purpose for going to PCD?
Event center, I believe.
Yes.
It was shown, it's shown PCD on the exhibit, but we're not, we
Well,
requested
The
for their waiver first.
alleged desire to go to PCD.
Correct.
And one of the reasons also for requesting moving the rezoning application and seeing the waiver first and rezoning, providing additional time for public notification and response and comment.
May the applicant speak?
Why not? Well, waiting for a specific question. Name and address, please.
Roy Andrews, 3 Monarch Drive.
Brent Ashcraft, 11575 Crystal Bay, North Little Rock.
So what we're asking for is a waiver. This property has changed hands, and what we would like to do next time, if the waiver is granted, is actually file for the rezoning request and bring, as a requirement of that, bring a site plan for y'all to review. You granting the waiver tonight doesn't grant the rezone. It just allows us to bring it before you and really discuss it. And I can let the applicant state what his intentions are, and that communication with the country club has been established.
Yeah, so appreciate y'all hearing us. At our last deal, just such a welcome topic, and I understand that it's been a contentious matter all the way through. The plan I brought forth, from the moment my offer was made to Mr. Harris and his party on the property, was worked with the Maumelle Country Club. When our rezoning hit in March, it was very clear the intent of this property is it's going to be developed, and that's the direction the city has deemed for us. So what I brought forth, and I don't know if you answered the question, I couldn't hear back there, is I'm wanting to put an event center on top of that hill. My event center is set to target weddings and other mid-sized events of that nature. So far, I've had six formal meetings with the country club, and every one of them has gone well. I've offered them several ways to get involved in my project. The nature of the business I'm trying to put in back there is lends itself to what they already do. So, you know, are they going to make money on this? Yes, if they choose to. And, you know, I don't want to ramble. I'm bad about rambling, so I'll sit here and talk for 30 minutes and tell you guys all the things I want to do. But
yeah, we'll leave the rest towards direct questions on that, but thank you for indulging.
Yeah, and he went through that too. He was very forthcoming about that subcommittee as well, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate you filling me in my absence. Any questions or comments to the applicant? I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the waiver request to section 94-12 to allow rezoning application to be submitted within 12 months prior approval of a property located at 99 Club Manor Drive.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
All those opposed, no?
No.
The waiver is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item number 5, a code amendment to 94-353. Mr. Grummer, staff report, please.
Okay, this is the proposed ordinance amendment to section 94-353 would change multifamily residential uses as permitted in the R3 district from a permitted use in a C2 district to a conditional use in a C2 district. All public notification requirements were met and no public comments were received. Staff recommends a do pass recommendation to City Council for the proposed ordinance amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Grummer. Any questions or comments directed towards staff? Any discussion from the commission at all?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for a due pass recommendation to the City Council to amend section 94-5353, change multifamily residential use as permitted in the R3 district from a permitted use in C2 district to a conditional use in C2 district, and for any other purposes contingent upon staff, engineering, and planning commission comments.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. All right, we will issue a due pass recommendation. Move on to item number 6, a code amendment to section 94-102. Mr. Grummer, staff report, please.
So this proposed ordinance amendment to section 94-102 would change the commercial building design criteria to include architectural metals as a design element and would require all commercial design requirements in any area zoned C4 highway commercial. All public notification requirements were met and no public comments were received. Staff recommends a do pass recommendation to City Council for the proposed ordinance amendment.
Mr. Grummer, any questions or comments directed towards staff?
Yeah, question, I brought this up at subcommittee, and this is direct toward staff. Do you believe that this fully covers the types of material that could be presented to us?
So one of the things that we modified since the subcommittee, you'll notice on page 2 of the ordinance, and Jason did some diligent research looking at other municipalities, and he couldn't find a true definition of what's really considered an architectural metal. So what we did was, if you read the highlighted, underlined, prefabricated steel panels or metal siding when used as a primary sheathing of the facade is prohibited when visible from the public realm or residential areas unless covered with an allowable high-quality material as defined in the section. That was added in, but then other forms of architectural metal when used as an architectural treatment or aesthetic accent may cover no more than 25% of any facade, and then this is the point, if designed by a licensed architect. The way we see it is, if you're going to put, starting out, if you're going to put architectural metal on a building, then you need to be qualified to place that metal. So that was the easiest way without having a true definition of, now that may be a little extensive, but it's basically saying that we want you to have somebody professional to make that determination presented to the commission.
And then we would have to make the decision whether they're right or wrong.
That's what it is. Whether you like it or you don't like it.
This is what we get paid for, right?
That's right.
I did have another question back there on, down on D, under design review. You've got in there the planning department and zoning or planning commission to approve, to review and approve. Should that be an or?
It is or, planning, zoning.
Yeah, that's, yeah, it is or.
Yeah, it says or. I mean, you know, that cuts us out of design approval?
Well, so,
You could?
not necessarily, so the design review, if it's a minor, some site plans under 3 acres, do not come to the planning commission. So, it could be staff review
Yeah, but
or
that's not
planning
what you
commission.
said.
What's that?
But that's not what you said. Basically, anything that came before you on a design review can be approved by you all, doesn't have to come to us. Isn't that what it says?
Well, so that's right, architectural metal in this does not necessarily need to come to you if it's a staff level review. But it would have to be designed by an architect. So yes, on those less than 3 acres, if it is a staff review, then.
You say, Mike, you wanna see all the panels on, regardless of the size of the development?
Well, what I'm saying is up to this point, anything that we've looked at here in, let's say, the last 12 months has come to us on panels.
I would agree with Commissioner Fisher's interpretation. The way this reads is that, while I do understand Mr. Grummer's point that there is some staff level review, there's a threshold for that, but as this is written, staff can approve anything, regardless of the size of the development, on this particular issue. And if that's something the commission is comfortable with, Mr. Grummer or any successor he may have exercising that discretion, then great, but it is an issue with the wording.
This isn't a change, that portion of, it's the way it's been, I mean.
Yeah, but we've never had metal panels before either. This is a change.
Well, that portion of the ordinance that's just the way our code is currently written. It's not a change to that section.
I would feel
That don't
more
mean it's
comfortable.
right.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable if you put in the exception that you were talking about, if it's less than a certain amount.
So what I'm hearing is that you'd like added to the area that was including the architectural metal, a condition that would trigger planning commission review if architectural metal is proposed. Is that what you're saying?
Now come down there to rework that design review.
Do you wanna see everything? If it's got panels, if it's got architectural panels?
I'm just saying, he said there is exceptions. Delineate the exception in the
Well,
design review.
you'll have to change other sections of code if you do that.
Since we crawled down this rabbit hole, if you flip to the next page, looks like any of items 1, 2, or 3 can technically be reviewed and approved on a staff level, not just the architectural metal. No elevation drawings,
And again,
and screening, illumination.
well, and again, that comes down to when you're dealing with site plan review. Site plan review allows for staff level for anything under 3 acres. But typically, we bring it to planning commission just because, or I've been bringing everything just because early on, I want to make sure that the commission is comfortable with things that I'm reviewing internally.
I mean, I'm of the thought that status quo has served us well thus far, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but Commissioner Fisher does bring up a little hole in our code.
Yeah, I've been sitting on this thing for a long time, and, there have been discretions, but most everything has come to us before. Very little has been approved at staff level. So all I'm saying is, I don't think that we've got this worded exactly right, and I would think that maybe another look at it.
Okay, well, table it, bring it back, it's fine.
Or you could propose an amendment.
I would propose to table and allow staff to look at some of the concerns that I brought up.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Those in favor of tabling this item, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no? All right, this is tabled. And a procedural point, Madam City Attorney, please correct me if I'm wrong, this can show up as old business at our next meeting, but it will require an affirmative motion from the commission to bring it from the table, correct?
It was not tabled to a date certain, so it would require a motion to bring it back up.
Okay. All right, we will now move on to item number 7, which has a few sub-items regarding the O'Reilly Senior Community Edition. I have 2 comment cards. Mr. Dale, one of those is yours. Please, yes, you're up.
I just didn't know if I had to fill one out to speak, but I mean, Brian Dale
Okay.
with Joe White and Associates representing the applicant. We've got members of the design team here. We got Scott Alman, who's with the architect with SWD. We've got Grant Cox with Puddlebaum Groom. We've got the Hathaway Group over here with Jeff Hathaway, and we even have the seller here. So,
Mr. Dale, if you wouldn't mind, since you are really representing the applicant and not pursuing as a true public comment, would you mind letting Ms. Watkins give her public comment before you address?
not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Welcome. Name and address, please.
My name is Janet Watkins. I live at 11400 Crystal Hill Road. I've been a resident there for 50 years. And usually when I have to come before the Planning Commission, it's to keep something unpleasant out. But if what I'm hearing about this project is true, then I'm here to speak in favor for it. I would like to keep all the trees and have nothing and live down there in the woods the rest of my life. But I'm a pretty smart old lady, and I realize that's not going to happen. So if it is as good as I think it is, then as maybe, I don't know, I'm probably the closest resident to it because there's other people down there that are in North Little Rock. But I'm in the city limits of Maumelle, and I see it as a really good thing. It's a beautiful piece of property, and if I'm not mistaken, I haven't gotten out and walked to see it in a long time, but I think it backs up to the river, and I think it would make an excellent senior development and much preferable to all the apartments, more apartments. If we get any more apartments, they can't build a road big enough to handle all the people. And so I'm here really as a gathering information for the other 2 or 3 people that are interested in it, and also the Riverbend development. And I don't think any of them are here tonight, but they're actually in North Little Rock, but they're neighbors to this project. And all that being said, we'll get along just fine with them if they'll promise to leave as many trees as they can leave. And there's all kinds of wildlife and deer and squirrels and foxes and more than one fox is a word. Anyway, we'd like to keep as much of that as we can because it's really a nice area down there along the river, a beautiful drive. And when they get the road finished, if they ever get the road finished, it's going to be really nice down there with views of the river. So that's all I came to say, and to just hear what their plans are and kind of what it's going to be like. Thank you.
I do have one question of you. How are you getting in and out of your property?
Very carefully, and I have to get out of here before dark because I won't dare drive that road at night.
It's dark.
It is at dark. Well, it's a good thing y'all finally wound it up, and I got to say my spiel, and I'll go home because there's sections of it where the drop-off is higher than my head. So it's really a dangerous situation. And put out the word to everybody, don't come down there. It's one way, and people are going both directions, and it's bad. Yeah. So, but it's going to get better. I know it is. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Dale, you may continue your comment, or as an applicant's representative, you'll be recognized during the affirmative times if you would like to defer, but you are entitled to speak as a member of the public. All right. Start with the proposed rezoning from PCD to PRD. Mr. Grummer, staff report.
So the applicant approached the city in June of this year with the request to develop a senior living facility on the proposed location at 11905 Crystal Hill Road. The facility would include 153 units having 201 beds. Of those, 127 beds would be located in the 4-story building fronting Crystal Hill Road. 54 beds would be in the 2-story building directly behind the first, and 20 beds in the single-story memory care facility in the rear. The property was originally zoned PRD, but a rezoning request to PCD was approved in May of 2015 with a land use change from special use residential to commercial. The applicant is requesting a rezoning back to PRD and a land use to SUR to accommodate the proposed development. The property is undeveloped and wooded, but after the initial rezoning to PCD in 2015, no development plans were submitted for the property. With no current plans for commercial on the property, the prospective owners of the property see a larger need for a senior living community, necessitating the need for rezoning to PRD. The Department of Health shows a bed need of 385 in Pulaski County. A zoning and land use summary and analysis was provided to the commissioners. Staff feel this proposal is a reasonable request for the location. All required notification requirements have been met. We received 2 public comments. Of those 2, one of them spoke today already, Ms. Watkins, for the proposed project. Both of them were for the project. Staff recommends a do-pass recommendation to Maumelle City Council to amend the master zoning map from PCD to PRD.
Thank you, Mr. Drummer. Any questions or comments to staff or the applicant? Does anyone have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I go ahead and make a motion for a do-pass recommendation to the City Council to amend the master zoning map from PCD to PRD of the property located at 11925 Crystal Hill Road.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Do-pass recommendation will be issued. Moving on to sub-item B, the proposed land use amendment. Mr. Drummer, staff report, anything further?
Nothing further. Staff recommends a do-pass recommendation to Maumelle City Council to amend the master land use plan map from commercial to special use residential to conform to the PRD zoning that was just approved.
Chairman, if there are no questions from the commission, I make a motion for a do-pass recommendation to the City Council to amend the master land use plan from commercial to SUR for the property located at 11925 Crystal Hill Road.
That's 11905, I'm sorry.
What did I say?
Was it 25?
That's in the.
11925, what did I say?
Well, there I go, making the mistake of correcting. I apologize.
Oh, yeah, I made a mistake earlier, so.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Do-pass recommendation will be issued. Moving on to sub-item C, the proposed preliminary development plan. Staff report, Mr. Drummond.
Okay, so I am actually going to defer the review of that and allow our planner who reviewed the plans to give a report on the PDP. Mr. Lyon?
Get the mic from you.
Gotcha.
Okay. So for the preliminary development plan, no major issues were found. What's going to be found, and I'll just go ahead and make a note of this for items, the rest of the items on this, as they're all kind of tied together as part of the major review. So from C to F, we're just going to have to be waiting on some drainage plans, which will be part of the civil set. So those are going to be some items that have to be addressed by the city engineer. But everything else on this plan meets our recommendations. So if anyone has questions, they'll be added obviously on the development plan and the plat. They're going to be having to add sidewalks along Village Cove, which is the entry on the north side, and then noting the 8 to 12 foot wide pathway that is already in the works for Crystal Hill Road as well. That's currently under construction. With that said, on the preliminary development plan, the staff recommends approval. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Any questions or comments directed towards staff? Or directed at the applicant? Any discussion of any other nature?
It's a good plan. It's nice.
Yeah.
Well done. I make a motion for do-pass recommendation to City Council for the preliminary development plans over LA Senior Community Addition contingent upon any other staff, city engineer, planning commissioner comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. We will issue do-pass recommendation. Sub-item D, the proposed preliminary plat. Mr. Lyon, any further staff comments?
All right, on this one, there will be an update on this one as they move towards the final plat. If you'll notice in your packet, the track A is mentioned. That will need to be formally platted as will be platted as an unbuildable lot, meaning no structure will be built on it, but it will be obviously, could be utilized as a road into property further back, the Wells property, it's commonly referred to, as well as any utility easements that might be needed. That's our main note on this plat is basically it'll be lot 2, it'd be just classified as an unbuildable lot. And that's for Mr. Wells to continue to have his current driveway that runs along the southwestern boundary of this property for the development.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon.
Mr. Chair, may I add to that as well?
Go ahead, Mr. Grumman.
And bear with me. So, one of the things on that track A was the current owner, Mr. Wells, who's selling the property, does want to keep ownership and control of that. The recommendation that was able to work was, rather than saying unbuildable, there would be a plat note on the final plat that would state that no structure may be built on track A, just in order to be specific and satisfy the needs of all legal counsel that is involved in this process. Which, from a staff standpoint, we're fine with that. It means the same thing.
Any questions or comments from the commission to staff or the applicant?
Question, Mr. Cale?
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure which one I'm looking at.
That's the preliminary development plan.
Okay. Make sure I have the right one.
Yes, sir.
On that, I'm seeing that there's a note on here that you're showing a proposed 6-foot fence all along that side going all the way up to, I guess, that'd be the south and west side of the property.
Yes, sir.
But on the landscaping plan, you're not showing it to go all the way. I guess I ought to ask that when the landscaping plan comes up.
Well, that's just a coordination issue then. I believe the requirement is we have to screen all residential property, is that correct? And we're gonna comply with that requirement, so
Okay.
we'll.
I just noticed that on the landscape plan, it did not go all the way.
We just missed it in the coordination, but we'll follow the ordinance.
You're excused.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the preliminary plat? Does anyone have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for the O'Reilly Senior Community Edition, contingent on meeting all staff, city engineer, and planning commissioner comments.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. All right. Preliminary plat is approved. Moving on to the proposed landscape review. Mr. Grummer, Mr. Lyon, further staff comments?
No, there's no further staff comments. Thank you, Commissioner Fisher, for pointing out I neglected to see that the fence did not go all the way up to the property line, so we'll note that, and we'll get with Mr. Dale to make sure all of our plans meld together appropriately with the fencing, which it's proposed to be a 6-foot privacy fence that runs along it. As far as the landscape plan, it meets all of our requirements. They've got quite a bit of trees they are adding in. Rather than going with a 30-foot on center, they have grouped the trees together in groups of 3, which is allowed. I don't have any further issues with it. So.
I can't remember from the and I'm sorry, Brian, I should have asked this earlier, but is your client phasing the development through, or how's he developing it? Can you share that with us?
It'll be all one structure constructed at one time, including all the parking lot and the related appurtenances.
Yeah, I didn't see any phase lines, although that you wouldn't see that on the commercial development, so everything's gonna be done once. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Further discussion?
Make a motion that we approve the proposed landscape plan for the O'Reilly Senior Citizen community edition contingent upon meeting any other staff, city engineer, planning commissioner comments.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. All right. Landscape plan is approved. Moving on to the proposed commercial building design. Mr. Ryan, staff report, please.
Okay, the commercial building design, as you can see in your packet, they've met all the requirements for high-grade materials. It looks like a very, very nice, especially where it's gonna be fronting Crystal Hill Road. You're gonna have the independent living portion will be 4 stories, the assisted living behind will be 2 stories, and then goes down to 1 story for the memory care. The facades are very similar. And again, they meet the standards of everything we need. Further on, as we get down to building permits, will be where obviously our permit office and fire marshal will be looking at other anything else extenuating, such as fire connections and whatnot. But it meets all of our requirements of planning and zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Any questions or comments from staff or the applicant?
If you build it, they will come. It's big. It's a lot.
Indeed. No further discussion. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed commercial building design for O'Reilly Senior Community Edition contingent on meeting all staff, city engineer, and planning commissioner comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Proposal design is approved. I will now close the public hearing. We'll move on to city council liaison reports. Report for August 2nd, Commissioner Johnson.
Before I give my report, I don't think we've ever, I think we did Ada Alpha to Omega here, all at one time for one development. I don't ever recall that, and I've been here for a long time. So it's, to be committed for that, which is good, which is exciting as well.
Awesome.
I will point out
That fast.
on that as well that the rezoning, which you did do pass on, will go to city council for 3 readings. Everything that you approved here is contingent upon that rezoning. If that doesn't happen, this falls out.
So we got the first, on mine, Mr. Chair, first reading of the Pinnacle Heights. I think the consensus was that they would go ahead and get a public meeting. I think that has occurred. I don't know where that is, or even, I think that it's still at the first reading and they've not heard it on the second one. So you have 3 items with that. The land use map and the zoning map go with it too as well. And then they've heard the meeting that I covered, the first reading of the Bradley property was done as well. The land use and the zoning map goes along with that. There's no development plans scheduled for that property, as you may remember. Resolution passed for the DeVoe Bend, which was up by the bayou, the Wild Bayou. And then the preliminary development plan for CCA Phase 18, Track 4, passed unanimously resolution, and they renamed a street. I just thought I'd throw that in there for Jackie Johnson, which I thought was a nice sentiment. Concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. The meeting of August 16th was Commissioner Stevens. He's not present with us this evening, so we will refer to the city website for the minutes and the video assignments for the month of September the 7th, which is Tuesday. Commissioner Smith, that's you. And September the 20th is Commissioner Fisher. Anything further? Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. We are adjourned.